Reggae Interviews. Word sound power.
This is DJ 745 carrying out a reggae interview with an artist and producer whom I feel very blessed to be beside. His wealth of knowledge, his history has given him legendary status in musical circles. Dandy Livingstone, welcome to Reggae Interviews.
Thank you. Nice to be here with you.
We met very, very briefly, I think. It was probably around about 12 months ago in 2019. You were there at Vinyl Thursdays, just taking in the vibes, just having a cold beer, I think. Yeah, I was just chilling out at Vinyl Thursday. You know, it was a very good scene at the time. Yes. I enjoyed it. Yeah. Well, we definitely have to give thanks to people like Lorraine, Joe Spinner, that have been very instrumental in trying to, you know, preserve that culture of playing vinyl records here in Jamaica as well. Now, the reason why we're getting together today is that we want to actually help to educate our viewers, especially the younger viewers that may not know so much about the great works that you've put in a career that's lasted more than 4 decades.
I'd say about 55 years. Yes, it's good to be, you know, the younger people need to know, you know, the roots of the music. It's not just last night, eh?
No, of course.
No, it's been coming over 50 odd years, right? And yeah, and it's good that people like yourself, you know, trying to educate the youth, as I just said, right? Yeah.
I think one thing that I find is that a lot of the history behind the music that's come from Jamaica hasn't always been so well documented, and I feel it's really important to ensure that people actually know where things started, how people like yourself first started out, because the contributions that you've made are immense.
That's right. Well, as you know, I started out in England. Out of music wasn't into my portfolio, so to speak, right? When I mentioned music to my mom, she said, what's that? You know, like a taboo, you know. But I got into music to stay out of peer pressure. Yeah, you know, because in the early days in England, you know, West Indian, you know, it was hard. It's not like now, right? So yes, I got into music because of, you know, of that scene, stay out of peer pressure. The music was good, you know. We enjoyed ourselves with all these records coming up from Jamaica weekly. Yeah, you know, and it was something to keep our spirit going, you know, as young people and old people. Sure. My parents and others, you know. So give thanks, I'm still here, right? As I said, it was an accident, me getting into music, but in the end, it paid off.
Right.
Yeah, my thing was I did tool making, you know, engineering, you know. I went East Technical College, right? And I did the old City and Guild thing, you know, and which I had to do because of an only child from my parents, right? So I couldn't let him down. No. So, but after that, I worked at about 2 places, and music sort of just took over. You know, I wasn't one of them individuals who wanted to go up and down the roads. I didn't like the road, right? Because I saw where it made a lot of people like myself, musicians, you know, got stressed out and get into all sort of things, right? So I enjoyed just doing my work in the studio. And I did a lot.
Right, of course.
And help a couple of the people along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I've had some good times. Yeah.
So, just so that our viewers are clear, you were born here in Jamaica, and then you migrated to England probably in around the late 1950s?
In August 59.
August 59,
yeah,
okay.
A long time ago.
So, what was the reasoning behind migrating to the UK?
Well, my parents, my mom, you know, she had a broken marriage and things like that, you know, and after 2 years, you know, she decided to left the man behind. Okay. Yeah, right. And she got divorced, you know, and took off to England. And I, as an only child for my mom anyway, I had to join her.
Right, okay.
So I had no choice, eh?
No.
Right.
So how old were you when you first put your first footsteps into the UK, and what were your impressions?
Yeah, I was 15.
Okay.
I was 15. You know, when you're young, you know, you're adventurous, eh? I remember getting to the, I think it was Victoria Station at the time, and everybody was, you know, people, you know, family and friends came to meet them, and I looked around and my mom wasn't there, you know. So I started to get a bit, you know, where's my mother, you know. Anyway, I had the address where I was going, my aunt's address or my mom's address, so I took a taxi. I had enough money to, you know, take a taxi. Yeah, hoping that the taxi would take me to the right place. Anyway, I got to the right place and everybody was surprised. What are you doing here? I said, hey, I'm here.
You're here.
The reason for that is the flight was delayed for about 2-3 times, you know.
Right.
So it was confusion, you know, with my mom there and me out here, right? So hence the problem.
The problems, yeah.
Anyway, she was glad to see me in the end. Right? Yeah, I find my way home.
I mean, I'm just imagining that taxi journey from Victoria to your aunt's house.
To Forest Gate.
To Forest Gate, okay, so that's East London.
E7. Yeah.
E7, yeah.
Forest Gate, yeah.
And what was going through your mind? You're sitting in this taxi, a 15-year-old in a completely foreign environment. You must have been quite taken aback by some of the buildings, the architecture.
Well, you know, something I couldn't see much, you know, because it was very dense. Well, it wasn't dense, but it was, you know, foggy.
Right,
you know, something like 11 after 10 in the morning, you know. And I couldn't see a lot, but it was great. It reminded me of some of the old-time movies, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to go to the movies a lot in Jamaica, so you know, I was reminded that being in a taxi. Oh, this is London, you know.
London, right? Okay.
Yeah, but like I said before, you know, when you're young, you're adventurous, eh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Free-spirited.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, was music a part of your life before you migrated to England?
No. Only on records, eh?
Okay, yeah.
Because my dad, you know, he had all these rhythm and blues records and things. Yeah, he was a music man in that sense.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and he had a lot of the old, you know, 78s and whatever, you know, and I love them.
Okay.
You know, up until this day, my biggest collection of music is rhythm and blues, jump blues.
Jump blues, right?
Yeah,
okay.
and jazz, yeah. Yeah, reggae came after that. Because reggae came out of those music anyway. Yeah, and there's a lot of people don't know this, and who is supposed to tell them don't? Which I'm very annoyed with, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, reggae is from the rhythm and blues. The Coxsons and Duke Reid used to play those records, eh?
Yeah, because I think the story goes that I understand is that people like Coxson used to bring records back in from America, scratch off the labels to try and make it their exclusive dub plates, but it was rhythm and blues that they were playing back then.
It was rhythm and blues, you know, on these 78s and 45 came in after a while in Jamaica, as you know, right? Yeah, so reggae music, ska, whatever, revolved from those things, right?
Yeah, of course. So it's been an evolution.
Yeah, because I've got many records indoors with cha and soul jazz and Roscoe Gordon and, you know, Louis Armstrong, Louis Jordan. Yeah. So, you know, Jamaican musicians do their own thing with it, you know, until ska came about, and then it was what, rocksteady, and then reggae. Yeah. Reggae didn't just happen overnight in Jamaica. Everything comes from somewhere, doesn't it? Yeah.
So you're there in London, you're a teenager, and you've obviously gone through education there. How did the connections into music then develop from there then?
Well, as I said to you before, it's out of, you know what, peer pressure and things. So a friend of mine, Dimple Hines, he passed a couple of years ago, eh? He had a group called The Marvel. You must have heard of him.
Yes.
Dimple was a family friend.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so he invited me down to Cambridge Road, where League office was, and early Island Records. And in the basement was Sonny Roberts.
Right,
from Orbitone Records, and they used to rehearse in Sonny's studio. You know, the Jackie Edwards, Tony Washington, Rika Rodriguez, and so on. And I went down there to watch my friend do his thing. You know, he was in cabaret them times, right? Dimples, And I, you know, after I went a couple of times, I got interested in the whole thing, you know. League Uptown came in the fold, which somehow we got talking, and he said to me, how about you selling some records for me in weekend times? And you know, I thought about it, you know, and a week after I said, yeah, why not, you know. Of course, it could help pay my bus fares and, you know, party money and things like that as a young boy.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I did that, yeah. I took it up and I sold, yeah, we sold some Busters and some, you know, Derek Morgan and things like that, you know. In them days, I mean, those guys was like king to me, you know, in idol. Because I didn't sing a note then.
Right, okay. So there you are, you're selling records up and down in London, in your neighbourhood and things, and I guess that, you know, back then it was quite difficult to actually access some of those 45s because, you know, back then there was no internet or anything, and, you know, obviously people were shipping music into the UK because it was a big market for Jamaican music, but nevertheless it was still quite hard to come by.
Yeah, well, you know, in those days there were 2-3 planes a week coming from Jamaica, right? And boats and whatever you. And people would bring up all these new pre-releases, you know, without labels and things like that. Then the people like Lee Gopwell and Chris Blackwell and the likes, the early ones, would find the producer, get in touch with the producer, and release these songs, you know. Sometimes 2 different companies release the same record. yeah. And yes, and from there, Lee himself, right, God bless him, you know, he introduced me to a gentleman called Crawford. I can't remember the first name. Crawford was running Crossbow Records.
Okay.
Yeah, and he wanted to cash in on the this Jamaican scene, you know. So I did a audition, and I passed the audition. I sang Humpty Dumpty Sat on a Wall. Eric Morris version, right? And I did the audition, I passed, right? And from there that's how my whole thing started. Yeah. Well, it was great.
Did you receive any encouragement from some of your peers, your friends? They must have known that you've got a voice.
Well, a voice? What's that? Yeah. Well, you know, I'm a very what you could say reserved person, right? I don't have much friends and things like that, you know. And but a couple of people who were around the time, they say, you know, and some went astray differently, you know what I mean. but when I made a little impact, they would like check me out and say, hey, I know you'd make it. I say, how do you know I would make it? There wasn't anything in the making.
Right, okay.
But you know, when you're a winner, everybody jump on the wagon. Yeah. Right, you know. Oh, it was good. The few friends I had and things, and they were, well, I think glad for me, you know. And from there, I finished my schooling and my engineering bit, and got into music even further. Yeah, because then Lee Gopwell started his own thing, Trojan Records, and he invited me to come and have a look. The building down in Harsland, number 12, Neasden Lane. Went. It was a smelly place, you know, derelict building, you know, and funny enough, the first time I met Bonnie Lee, I met him there the morning.
With Lee.
Yeah. And the second time I met, for the second time, that's how the name Trojan came about, because Lee Gopwell was juggling with names and things, you know, and we happened to be there in the morning, and he called me and Bunny in and said, hey, good to see you two again, you know? What do you think of this, what do you think of that? And so, and he came up with, what do you think about Trojan? And we both said, yeah, everybody knows, all the Jamaican people know all about Trojan Records in Jamaica. It's a good name, yeah. And that was it, you know.
That was the birth of Trojan Records way back in 1969.
68.
68?
Yeah.
Okay.
68. So we were somewhat instrumental, me and Bunny Lee, in, you know, to be there and to say yes. Yeah, yeah. It was great. Great old Bunny Lee, yeah. Striker. Great guy. Yeah, man, it was fun.
What about Carnival Records? Let's talk about Sugar and Dandy.
Yeah, well, Carnival was before Trojan, as you know.
Yes.
Because, okay, I mentioned Crawford, right?
Yes.
So he had this subsidiary label, or he started this label for the West Indian sound music. And I did 3 sessions with them. I wasn't 21 yet. And I remember my mom had to go down to Dean Street or wherever they were. I don't think it was Dean, somewhere down the West End.
Somewhere,
to sign the agreement.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
because I wasn't 21, eh? Yeah, and my mom was very, you know, wasn't too sure and didn't like the idea. But anyway, she succumbed to my plea and signed. And that's where I really started out with those 3 sessions. Yes, and after I left Carnival, Rita King.
R&B.
R&B, right.
Okay.
We used to, Rita King had a shop in Stratford.
Yes.
Yeah, Stratford, and I knew Rita then because I used to buy a lot of records from Rita. And she knew about the Carnival thing.
Right.
What
okay.
Alive sold a lot of records. And she said to me one day, I met her after a good while, she said, "Danny, what are you doing?" So I said, "I had time off, you know." Didn't do anything for about 2 years. 2 years. And she said, "Whenever you want to get back in the music thing, start again, come and see me," which I did about 6 months after. And we sat down and had a chat and we did a couple of sessions together. One of the famous records we all know, Message to Rudy, Rudy, a message to you. Big tune, eh? Yes. Yeah, still is. That song is something else. 10 minutes, you know. Boom, 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 boom.
Let's go back 10 minits.
Yeah, it took me 10 minutes to get from with the idea in my head, and about 20 minutes to record the track at Old Kent Road.
Okay, South London.
Maximum Sound, right. I think Manfred Mann had something to do with the studio, right? And Vic Carey was the engineer. Yeah, we did the track. I remember I had a cold, very, very bad cold, and the voice you hear right now on that record, right, wasn't supposed to be the one, because you know, go back another day was the idea and sing it over, which everybody liked what they heard. So I said to myself, you know what, I won't bother to sing it over. You know?
So they just went with almost like the demo.
Yeah,
right, okay.
And it worked. It worked, you know. And when I did the track, something was telling me to put a trombone, you know, because as a jazz person myself, you know, from my dad, as I said before, I love the sound of a trombone.
Okay.
Yeah, I love trombone, and I got in touch with Rika. People were telling me that he won't show because, you know, he's a very sort of, you know, not no nonsense, but peculiar, you know. So anyway, that didn't deter me from checking him out. He came in the morning and said, "Where want me to play?" No, as a youth myself, you know, on this big Rico Rodriguez, you know, coyish and thing. I said, "Oh, play the melody."
Right, okay.
Yeah, da, 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 da. Yeah, and I said, all right, you know. And there was another guy there called Pepsi, saxophonist. He used to play with a group called the Lynx. And so there were 2 on people, Rico and Pepsi. And they did their thing. And the rest is you know, right? Yeah.
I mean, that song itself, I mean, it's got such a catchy beat to it, of course, and it was at a time when those Rude Boy songs were in abundance, and you were obviously in the United Kingdom, so you were thousands of miles away from all the stories and things that were going on here in Jamaica. how were you able to sort of convey that sort of message that you put across in that song, despite not being here on the island, where, you know, people like the Wailers and so forth were making their songs, the Clarendonians, Rudy Bam Bam, those kind of songs?
You know, life is funny, or some people say strange, eh? I had this dream, so to speak, right? Why not send a message, you know? And the idea came to me, you know. Everybody was singing, was bigging up, so to speak, Rudy. Yeah, most of these songs was bigging up the Rude Boys. So I said, you know what, I'm going to sing something to, you know.
Counteract it.
Yeah. And I did, you know. I did, and it worked. Done it.
Of course.
It did. Yeah. Up to now, I'm still puzzled, you know.
Yeah.
A simple song, but simplicity, as you know, sometimes goes a long way. Yeah.
So when you recorded the message, when did you first become aware that this song's really starting to bubble, people are taking note and interest in the dances?
You know, it's about 10 years after, you know.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. It took a long time because, you know, you don't think about 10 or 20 years beyond, eh?
Beyond.
Yeah, you just enjoy yourself, you know.
Live in the moment.
Yeah. And but what I noticed, I did it in '67, and I noticed by about '69 there were 3 versions. 3 people did it, you know, recovered it. You know, nothing happened, of course, you know. I remember one group, the Locomotive. I think they were the first one to cover Rudy, right? So to me, yeah, guy, you know, no big thing, you know. And then 2 other groups did it. So, and then another group, and then the Specials. I didn't even know the Specials were
a group.
I didn't hear of them.
No.
I didn't know of the Specials. When it hit, 80, 81?
Round about then,
yeah. I remember sitting in my living room one Top of the Pops was when? What day was it, Top of the Pops? A Friday or something like that?
Thursday and Friday.
Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
Anyway, sitting down and watching Top of the Pops, you know. All of a sudden I heard something sound familiar. You know, I saw Rico. Yeah. I said, that's my song. You know? I said, wait, what's going on here? You know? And I remember calling my wife, you know, before the song actually finished. I said, Ellen, hey, a group called The Special covered Rudy. And she said, yeah, that's good. So, of course, I wanted to also know, hey, what's happening, you know, royalties-wise, you know, songwriting-wise. 2 days after I checked out, I don't remember how I got to find out it was Carlin Music, or the publisher. Because originally it was Rita King's thing, right?
Yes.
And the publishing, or whatever the Earth thing was called. Anyway, little did I know that Carlin was checking me out, but couldn't find my whereabouts. You know, professional people, eh? That's what our professional work. You know, and they found me, and I found them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and up until this day, give thanks, knock wood, boom. You know, they've been good to me. Rudy been good to me.
Rudy been good to
you. Yeah, and thank God, you know, it's been very good to me. Yeah.
And you mentioned a few moments ago that Rico, you saw him performing as well, so he actually performed on the original version and, of course, the Specials version as well.
Of course, and that is something, eh? He played on the original.
Yeah.
And the Special got him to the guy called Damas, which was something, you know.
Of course.
Yeah. But in the meantime, right, when I said I didn't think anything about Rudy for a couple of years, right, I realized that people were still. It became a cult thing, the song, you know, the underground thing, you know. I remember going to Rita King one day and said, Rita, you owe me some money, you know. You know, I still haven't seen a proper statement. And she kept saying, oh, Danny, it's soon, you soon get a statement, you know. And I said, I want my money now. I want some money now, you know. And she bought a car. The car was called Angler, Ford Angler or something like that. And she said, drive this for the time being. So I said, I don't want a car, you know. I said, my parents has cars. You know what I mean? I'm not short of car, which I wasn't, you know. Anyway, so I said, all right, I'll keep the car for the time being. But I didn't want a car, I wanted cash, right? Anyway, in the end, I got some money out of her, of course, because I'm serious where that is concerned, you know what I mean? Yeah, you know, I'm serious about my, you know, getting my worth. Yeah. But in the end, Lee Goptal started his thing, so he called me, so I left her.
Right.
Yeah, and I went to Lee. Not a character, but
I think we're all characters, though, aren't we? In our own individual ways. So, just to be clear, so your debut album was recorded with Rita and Benny King, right? Okay, yeah.
Some tracks I put together and they put it out. It wasn't anything planned, you know. I didn't go in the studio to make an album. It's all compilation, you know, tracks and things. But it's sold, you know. It's sold. Like I said earlier on, you don't think about. Yeah, I mean, I was just, you know, happy, enjoying myself. Yeah.
So in those times, who came up with the stage name Dandy Livingstone?
Okay. Carnival days, right? You know, I did a couple tracks on my own, right?
Yes.
And I double tracked a couple things.
Is this the Sugar and Dandy?
Yeah, okay. For Sugar and Dandy, right? Now we had a couple of stage shows on the shelf. I say, all right, but I didn't want to be called Sugar.
Okay.
So I said, look, you take the name Sugar. I got this guy, no, it was a guy called Smith. I forget his name now, his first name. I said, you're going to be called Sugar, right? And me, Dandy, right? Oh, unselfish. I don't mind your name first. Yeah.
You just didn't want the sugar.
Yeah, because I didn't want to be called Sugar. Anyway, that's how the whole thing, you know, came about. And then Titus Simon came in the fold. Good singer, he did his thing, and you know, young people after a while, you drifted and things like that. So Livingstone is my middle name, actually.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So I said to myself, Dandy alone on the label doesn't ring a bell or sound good or look good. So I said, why not use my middle name? Okay. Then people began to say that Dr. Livingstone. Yeah, which when I realized, I said, yeah, why not? Yeah, Dandy Livingstone.
Dandy Livingstone.
And it worked, you know, ring a bigger bell than it, Dandy Livingstone. Yeah. And that is how that came about. It worked. Yeah.
I mean, back then, you know, in the late 60s, the early 70s, this period that we're talking about, this is when we started to have, obviously, a lot of your peers from Jamaica coming into England. Did you ever get a chance to sort of, you know, work with them or meet them? Because there was quite a lot of people like, you know, Alton Ellis, I think, the Wailers, of course, Delroy Wilson.
I've never met any of them. I met Delroy out here when I came out to Jamaica. Delroy Wilson actually did something with him. Okay. Humble, nice chap at the time. You know, very humble. But I've never met the Ken Booth, the Alton Ellises, or anything. No, it might sound strange, right? Wow. And I'm right here in Jamaica. Okay. I met, last year when the screening of the Rude Boy, the
Trojan.
Yeah, Trojan. Yes. I met Ken Booth for the first time.
At
the Pegasus when they had the screening there. Yeah, the first time I met Ken Booth last year. Never met Alton. I saw him like out there and here, but you know, most of these guys I've never met. Derek Morgan, none of those guys. I've never met them. I spoke to Derek Morgan about 2 years ago. I think he was at home. Someone went to visit him. I think it was Bonnie or something like that. And I heard in the background, I done did that. Okay. Yeah, and he came on the phone.
Wow.
Yeah, Derek Morgan, right? And he said, Livingstone, you know. I said, Mr. Morgan, you know. But never met him live.
Never met him live?
No, never met him live. Monty Morris, Eric Morris, which I always admire because I auditioned with his Humpty Dumpty.
Of course.
And if you listen to Waterlife, it's reminiscent to Humpty Dumpty anyway. Right, my first big hit. I met him about 3 years ago somewhere in New Kingston.
Right, okay.
Again, humble little guy, you know, didn't have much to say really, but you know, it was cool.
It's cool. Yeah. I mean, you're obviously seeing the growth and the development of the music in England. You know, all the blues parties and things like that. What were your sort of, you know, memories and vision, you know, looking back on some of the things that were happening whilst you were sort of living there?
Did you say blue?
Like the blues parties and things. You know,
oh, the blues parties down in the basement and everything. You know, yeah, it was a learning experience because at the time West Indian we didn't have many places to go, you know, so we had to form our own, do our own things. You know what I mean? And I didn't really like so much the basement thing.
Right, okay.
You know, sweaty walls and things like that, you know. And yeah, but I remember a guy called Duke Bunny had a sound in Forest Gate. And that's where I started my first, that's where I went to my first blues dance.
Okay.
A guy called Bunny from Forest Gate. These guys would move their furniture out their room on a Saturday morning to have a dance.
Right, okay. anything for the music, right?
Yeah, they would move out all the furniture, put it outside, cover it up with tarpaulin just in case it rains or whatever. Yeah, the 2 rooms and the curry goat, you know, aroma and thing like that we were going. And then days you had a beer called Long Life Beer. Okay. Yeah, and the gins and the whatever you. Yes, people enjoy themselves, you know. It was the only enjoyment.
Yeah.
Until the clubs, a few clubs started to pop up.
Right, okay.
Yeah, you know, like the Roaring Twenties came after that. You know, you had All-Star Club, Ken, what's his name? And a couple others. Yeah.
So the debut album we know was called Rocksteady with Dandy. Let's move on and talk about Dandy Returns. This is the Trojan era.
Yeah, right. That was the first album on Trojan Records, the first LP they released. As a matter of fact, that was done for. I started that for Palmer Records. Funny enough, where they were in Craven Park at the time, right? But somehow Lee came up in the middle of that and said he's ready.
Okay.
And I said, okay, I'll have to reimburse Palmer his money. Which I did.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And Lee Trojan got that album. It was a start, you know. Again, it was one of them things. The Palmers they understood. Yeah. And from there on, I started doing singles for Trojan. Yeah. I've never signed a recording contract all my life.
Really?
Never.
Okay.
Never sign a recording contract. You know, and it sounds strange to some people. I've never ever signed a recording contract. I signed for sessions. You know, 3 tunes on a session or 4, and that's it. But this long-term thing, never.
I guess that there must be an element of friendship between people like Lee and yourself to actually be working in that sort of environment without any official documentation.
Definitely. We respected each other, and there was this thing, Lee saw something in me that I trust, you know, and you know.
There's a mutual respect.
Yeah. And from the time I sold them records for him in the early days when he was at Cambridge Road, and I took his money to him, and he was like, yeah, shocked, because a couple of guys had carried him down. Yeah. And he said to me one day, he said, them time he didn't call me Dandy, Robert. He said, Robert, you know, thanks, you know, you're a good chap. But I didn't understand what he was talking about at the time. Why am I a good chap? But about a couple of minutes after that, I found out why he said that, because people had carried him down, you know, not delivering, not going back to him. But then the money or whatever. And from there on, you know, yeah, we became close, you know. When Trojan started, you know, we had parties, you know. He came to my party at my house. I went, you know, went to his party at his house. Dave Bettridge and these people, sure. Graham Walker, you know. It was good. Yeah, so we were like family in a sense. Yeah, in the early days.
And then, you know, I mean, we could talk about Trojan for days and days because there's so much for history, but one of the things I have to mention is the Tighten Up series of records, you know, the compilations that they used to put out, and you had a big song on there, didn't you? Reggae in Your Jeggae. What was the meaning behind that song, though?
Reggae in Your Jeggae. You know, people usually ask me what Jeggae means. I usually say, I'm going to say it again, it's left to your imagination, you know. Funny enough, when I did that song, right, I was embarrassed to let my mom, you know, I wonder if my mom is going to hear this. Yeah, strange, isn't it? Okay. Yeah, I was embarrassed, you know what I mean? That she would ask me, like, what is Jeggae? Right. But you know, moms are moms, eh? She wasn't going to ask me. But she would have, you know. But I was embarrassed, honestly. Yeah, to have a song title like that, Reggae in Your Jeggae. But in the end, it was cool. Yeah, man.
I mean, you know, I'm sort of, you know, looking back and I'm sort of thinking, of course, then we had another really big hit single, Suzanne, Beware of the Devil. That song was originally written or sung by Nicky Thomas.
I recorded it first.
You recorded it first?
It's my song, right? I recorded it. And it came out as a B-side on one of my, you know, in them days you had to have a B-side, right? I think it was a Emily Ford song, What Do You Want to Make Those Eyes at Me For, right? Emily Ford. So we didn't have a B-side, and I remember in the morning they wanted to rush release this sophisticated, you know, Emily Ford song. So I remember I had this tape. So I went in the studio in the morning, blah, 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 you know, rush and things like that. And it was on the B-side. The record came out, the A-side, and nothing. Roscoe, there was a DJ called Roscoe, Emperor Roscoe. Yeah, he flipped it and started to play the B-side in the clubs. And the kids went wild over it. So he called Trojan and said, hey, you guys have a hit.
Okay.
And Lee Gopsall said to him, what song? Yeah, so Roscoe swore at him, you know, you mean what song? The Dandy Livingstone song, the B-side of that other song. So Lee said, yeah? Oh. Anyway, what's his name who had the Common People, Love of the Common People? Nicky Thomas had just gotten off Love of the Common People, right? And he had 2 follow-ups which did nothing. So Lee called me one morning on the phone at home and said, Dandy, how about Nicky? Would you mind if Nicky Thomas yes, do Susan Beware the Devil? I said, no, let him do it, you know. Because I said to you early on in the interview, I was just, you know, I'm free-spirited. Yeah. It's my song. If it becomes a hit, the publishing is there in a way, and things like that. And Nicky did it, but they made a mistake. Not just him, you know, putting on Nicky's version, but they added some trombones and whatever, like a big band thing. And people, they didn't want that. They want the authentic Dandy Livingstone rough voice. Yeah, so this is 2 songs now, Rudy and Suzanne. It's just rough voices, and it worked. See, the ones you polish and things like that and set up good didn't make it. Yeah, but the ethnic ones, you know, made it. And they released my version, and in less than 3 weeks I was on top of the pops. Yeah, doing my thing, my way.
That must have been an experience, though. Top of the Pops back then.
It was. You know, the Top of the Pops. Am I ready? Am I ready? You know. Anyway, as fate would have it, yeah, I did Top of the Pops. Run over it, man. You know what I mean? Everything was cool.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Sold some records. Yeah.
You also had the other. I think this must have been a follow-up now. The Big City.
Big City. Yeah. Yeah, that was a follow-up. Yeah. Big City came out in '73, April maybe them time. Big City. Yeah. Those tracks were done in Jamaica, you know. Big City.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, and Suzanne too.
I thought it was recorded in the UK.
No, they were recorded out here.
Okay.
Big City, yeah, and again, Top of the Pops, eh? And you've seen the video, right? Oh, yeah, man. Cool. And here I was, a man who was not popular on the road or anything like that, you know. And people would think nerves and anything. Nah, man, just went through that. Yeah, man. Yeah, had to do it, don't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And then you also had an album that I think you probably released around about that sort of in the sort of 73, 74 album titled Conscious.
Oh yeah, that was after all the Trojan stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. This is when things started to get a bit complicated, you know. Trojan was going down, somewhat, you know, whispering. You know, people started to whisper, and that was done for Chrysalis. I think it was Chrysalis, which Lee Gopthal had a little
input
into it. So they asked me to do a thing, and I did it. But at the time, things were a bit shaky, you know, and there were some good tracks, but it wasn't one of my. It wasn't something I really, you know, I gravitated to at the time. Yeah, and Chrysalis, you know, they played some good advances, you know, and that was it, you know. And a few months after that, Trojan went down, in 75. I think that the Chrysalis thing was late 73, 4-ish.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And but you know, there's the thing about Trojan. People were like, people sort of get some vibes were coming on, like, what's happening? And whisper and thing like that, you know. But it was peculiar because Trojan, as you know, had quite a few chart hits, eh?
Yes.
Quite a few. Once they had about 7 records in charts. But I think greed was the downfall of Trojan, you know. I think it was more or less greed. And people were like, you know, spending money left, right and center, you know, jumping on planes, going on holidays and whatever, and you know, and releasing too many records. They released too many records, like 7, 8 records a week. Yeah, which was it became a bit much, you know. However, that's that. Yeah. That was that.
So you were still living over in England back then. So there's a time when, you know, you almost kind of took a break from recording or releasing music, I should say, and then you moved back to Jamaica. What made you move back to Jamaica then?
I came back to Jamaica in '83.
Okay.
'83. I remember I came out here in '81 with my wife. We were living in Kenton, in Middlesex there, and we lived there for about 4 years. And we decided to move to North Harrow. And while unpacking, we had this thing to Jamaica. My wife, she said to me, "But we just bought a new house, you know, we just relocated. Why you want to go to Jamaica now? Everything still packed up." I just couldn't explain properly why. But there was this vibes telling me to take her to Jamaica, because she left here as a 12, 13-year-old as well. And so I said, "Look, come." something inside of me saying, I'm going to reintroduce it to Jamaica, which I did in 80 or 81, something like that. And we came home in 83. Yeah, never I regret it. No. I made the right move
at the right time. So you've been living here in Jamaica now for almost the last 4 decades, almost, and
March coming is 37 years.
37 years. Okay.
Next month.
Next month. Now, something that came about last year, which I was really, really pleased about, was that you went back in the studios.
I did, yeah.
A big song. They call us Legends, which is really, what this is all about. How did that come about? What made you, or what inspired you to go back into the studio and put out a single?
Yeah, they call us legend. The word legend kept popping up, all over the place, legend, So it came to me again, why not, write a song about legend? They call us legend. Now, I'm talking about primarily Jamaican legends, eh? The Derek Morgan, the this, the that, from our era. Yeah. Monty Morrison, those guys, yeah. Toots, yeah. And it worked. It worked. It will be out on my album. It should be out in about May, probably, yeah. Okay, because all the tracks are finished now.
Right, okay.
And don't like to blow my own trumpet, but some good music is in there. Try to keep it ethnic,
Sure.
Not cosmetic reggae.
No.
The real roots. Yeah.
You worked with Computer Paul for the song Legends.
Yeah, I did. All the songs, all the music. Right, again, we respect each other. At first, Paul is into his thing, and I'm into my thing. At first, he wasn't too sure if I really wanted to do what I'm doing. So I said, look, Paul, I'm not into the modern reggae thing. You know what I mean? I'm doing my thing. I'm an old schooler, so I'm sticking to what I know.
What do you know?
Yeah, which I did. And in the end, he said, Dandy, right, Yeah.
And there's also a video as well that accompanies that single that was released in 2019. Quite a few guest appearances on there as well. I could recognize a few familiar faces in the video.
Yeah, they came off murals, as you know, right? That was good, eh? I hope nobody chased me about all those things. I was never ever a plagiarist, but anyway, people love the video. Yeah, people love the video, and I haven't really promoted nothing yet, Okay. When the album released, then I'll start do some promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, legend. They call us legend. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think from our point of view here, from the team here at Reggae Interviews, it's been a really absolute pleasure just hearing some of the stories. I'm sure that we could talk, again, and we could even do a follow-up to this as well. But a message to all the people that have been listening to the music of Dandy Livingstone.
People, keep listening to Dandy Livingstone. This year, I've got a beautiful album coming out, right? It's still untitled, but check it out when it comes out. It's good. Believe me. Boom, boom.
Mr. Livingstone, pleasure talking to you today. We give thanks for your time today. One love.
You're welcome, right? And I enjoyed it.
Good.
Yeah, man. We're going to play some golf now, right?
Cool. Yes.
Reggae Interviews. Word, sound, power.